Okay, great. So also to introduce myself, hello there. I'm the voice behind the mic. This is our small cohort here, but it looks like we've got a few people still joining in. And so yeah, I'd like to take just one brief second to thank everybody for either logging in or coming out. We're getting towards the end of the semester. I know everybody is insanely busy and that finals are coming up, and some of us are graduating and hopefully moving on to things like the National Weather Service, like everybody wants. And so this is really cool. I'm really excited to introduce Matt. And I think I'd actually like to turn it over to Adam, who's worked with Matt before, to give a little introduction.
I guess I can just people here. Hi. So this I just got hired by the National Weather Service in San Diego. I'm in the MSEM program right now, one of the GAs at CDRE, and I just applied to the NWS back in December and got a job. And this is my future boss here, Matt Moreland at NWS San Diego. So I'm excited to start there in June. And I thought it would just be, we thought it would just be a good idea to kind of just give Millersville kind of a how-to in NWS from an MIC perspective to a student perspective. So I want to thank Matt for coming. He got to San Diego back in October before he was the meteorologist in charge down in Key West. So all those big hurricanes, he's gone through Irma. Now he's kind of relaxing, sort of trying to in San Diego. So he's gonna kind of give us a how-to get into the NWS from like a boss's standpoint, and I'm one of his hirees. So it's pretty cool to see the relationship that's being built off of this. So with that, I'll hand it over to Matt.
All right, thanks, Adam. So the last time I used Zoom was during Hurricane Irma giving briefings. So I'm having good memories right now. Very stressful briefings. So it's a great software tool. We're actually trying to adapt it in the Weather Service, but hasn't happened quite yet. So I have a slideshow. So I'm gonna try to share my screen here, and hopefully this will work out. So can you guys see my screen okay?
We can.
Yep.
Okay, great. So as Adam said, I'm currently at San Diego. I just passed my 6-month mark at the San Diego office, and the two middle pictures there are pictures from our office, and we have one of the best views in the National Weather Service.
Wow.
So we're in northern San Diego County, about 20 miles from downtown San Diego, and right at kind of the foothills of the mountains down here. So it's pretty awesome. We get great sunrise pictures, and sometimes fog, and on a rare occasion, actually some thunderstorms, but not a lot. The top 3 pictures there are my 3 previous offices. On the top left there is the Houston Galveston office, and they're actually co-located with Galveston County Emergency Management, and that's in a building that they moved into in 2005. So I was part of that, actually part of the office move, and all the meteorologists were helping to move furniture and boxes across the street for that. The middle picture there is the Slidell, Louisiana office, which covers New Orleans, Baton Rouge, and southern Mississippi. I was there about 3.5 years, and then the top right is the Key West office. And that's a picture of Key West just prior to Hurricane Irma, with the hurricane flags flying and all of the shutters deployed on the outside. So I've been MIC at 2 offices, both Key West and San Diego. Grand total, I've been MIC now for just over 3 years, so I'm still learning it in a lot of ways. I've worked over 20 tropical cyclones, including, I'm just trying to shrink this menu down here. Hold on a sec. I can't read the bottom. Here we go. Okay. So I've worked over 20 tropical cyclones. So I led the Key West office through Hurricane Irma. That was my last basically month on the job. Deployed at the Louisiana State EOC for Hurricane Isaac. It was a 9-day deployment. very, very stressful. Isaac is not a well-known storm, but it produced severe flooding all around New Orleans. And actually, some areas of Louisiana got worse flooding from Isaac than they did from Katrina. And then in 2008, went through the eye wall of Hurricane Ike at the Houston office. That was quite an adventure. Certified an emergency manager while I was in Louisiana, just at the state level. Meteorology is actually my second career. Prior to this, I was a programmer and software developer for MCI WorldCom for about 2 years during the .com era. Started in my hometown and then left, which is pretty unusual. And then I held a newly created one and done position, which was emergency response specialist team lead. That was my New Orleans job. It was a 3-year job that actually ended at the end of 3 years. I was very fortunate to have 2 of the best mentors in the agency. Bill Reed, who is the former Hurricane Center director, was my boss at Houston for 10 years. And then Ken Graham, who is the newly announced Hurricane Center director, was my boss at the Slidell office for 3 years. And without them, I definitely wouldn't be where I am today. They've taught me just about everything. But the point here is to find those 1 or 2 excellent mentors in the agency and follow them. So I want to talk a little bit about getting into the Weather Service. So at the college level, it's all about going above and beyond. So just having the degree, just having the classes, just doing the forecast contest is not enough. And I noticed, we just did the hiring here at San Diego. I noticed everybody likes to talk about the weather challenge and the forecast contest. We don't care that much, to be honest, because everybody does it. So it takes a lot more than that to get in the agency. Definitely AMS and NWA, including the local chapter. Being a leader or an officer in your local chapter is really big. Public speaking experience, tech skills, specifically the biggest ones are GIS, Java, and Python. And we want to hear not just that you took a class in those, I want to know what project you did. I used ArcGIS to do blank. I programmed a 1,500 line script in Python to do this. I want to know what you've actually done with it. Working with emergency management, which Millersville is definitely on top of that. And then being a volunteer at Pathways in the Weather Service. Definitely the biggest foot in the door. There's a culture shift going on in the Weather Service. So when I started, we typed all of our forecasts. So we're all day, we're at the computer, type, typing the zones. Obviously the AFD, that's still typed. Over the first time I heard the term decision support was in 2004. And that was at Fort Worth. I was up there deployed to help support a couple of hurricanes that were hitting Florida at the regional level. And one of the branch chiefs up there was like, you're going to hear this decision support term a lot more in the years to come. And we're really pushing in this direction now. And it's deploying on site during major events, working closely with emergency management, building our products and our briefings around emergency managers' needs, and even designing some of our warnings around what they want. And that's the first time in the agency we've done that. We used to just develop products and push them out. Here you go, here's your information. And now we're really starting to tailor what we do around our partners' needs. And that's what decision support is. So it does require a lot of new skills and training. So it's not, obviously, you are going to forecast and you're still going to forecast, but that's not necessarily what we're looking for in our hires now. So communication skills are big. Already having a training base built before you're even getting into the Weather Service. Even having some media experience or being prepared to do that when you're in the job. And some of the pictures here, so the top left there is the Boy Scout Jamboree deployment in West Virginia in 2013. And myself and several other meteorologists deployed with the National Guard on site at the big Boy Scout compound, and it's near Beckley, West Virginia. We were there for 2 weeks, giving briefings over a 10-county area. And one of the things we did was handle a big convective event, which affected an outdoor concert. They had to evacuate the site. The top right there is the effective hurricane messaging course, which is held at the Hurricane Center every year, where meteorologists come together and they learn how to effectively message in a tropical event. Bottom there, that's the woman in the purple shirt is Crizia Negron, and she's one of the forecasters at Key West, about to be at Melbourne, Florida. And she's giving a Spanish media interview. 10, 15 years ago, we didn't even think about that, doing media in Spanish or social media in Spanish. And that has certainly changed now, especially an office like here, Brownsville, Miami. The bottom left there is one of the DSS road shows where trainers go around to the local offices, and the local office actually takes a day off or 2 days off of normal operations and learns about DSS, and also goes through some practice scenarios for how you would handle a big event in the office. And then our briefing slides. Bottom slide there is one that was done for City of New Orleans during the Super Bowl. One slide, that's all we want. We want one slide with all the weather information. Above that, the Coast Guard. Actually, we want a 20-minute briefing as detailed as possible, including using abbreviations, which goes against. But now we're starting to tailor some of our products around what the partners want. Technical and communication skills, and we're really trying to emphasize this now. Can you show where you have some of this already set up in undergrad or grad? Can you show that on your resume? Can you show that you're already ready, or are you ready to embrace these concepts as you enter the agency? The top left picture there, the guy in the white shirt, that's Mike Efferson. He's a forecaster at the New Orleans office, and that he was deployed in Mississippi during Hurricane Isaac. And the governor of Mississippi was at that podium just a minute before, and he was answering questions from the media, and they got a weather question. He's like, you know what? I don't want to answer this. I'm going to bring my weather guy up here. So before you know it, before Mike knows it, he's on live TV at the governor's podium answering a question about the weather with no advance warning on that. So that's the kind of situations that a lot of us are getting into now. Bottom picture there is a Louisiana deployment. The guy with the cell phone is Dexter Ricardo. He's the emergency manager in St. Tammany Parish in Slidell. And there was a river flood going on. And he went right into our trailer and said, can you answer this question for me about the river? And I'm going to call my people right now and give them your information. When bidding out, you want to cast a wide net. So everybody has their favorite places or the places they dream about living. I never in a million years ever thought I would live in Key West. It was never on my list. But when the job opened up there, it was a good opportunity to grab that experience. And I knew I wasn't going to stay there forever. But, you know, it really did a lot for my career. And things like that come up. And one of these cities that you've never thought about, this might be your place. This might be the place for you to start out your career. There's 122 offices nationwide. Upward mobility. So this is generally how it works. At the local office level, non-management, you start as an intern. It's now really called meteorologist in training. And you start as a GS 5 or 7. You move up 2 levels a year to GS 11. And you stay there. And you move slowly up steps. And you bid on the next level up, which is general forecaster. And then the next level up from that is lead forecaster. And there's about 5 generals and 5 leads at every office on average. Then you get up to the management level, the science operations officer. primarily responsible for training and research to operations. The morning coordination meteorologist, primarily responsible for building partnerships, helping to strengthen partnerships in the community. And so you bid to one of those positions, and then finally meteorologist in charge. And meteorologist in charge is the supervisor. And as my former boss used to say, the MIC is not a weather job, it's a people job. And that's very true. So my job really is to make sure that our office is performing the way it needs to be, and also has all the equipment and support that it needs to do its job, more so than actually doing the weather. There's a lot of management at the regional or national centers as well. At each level upward requires a competitive bid process. And typically those jobs don't open up until they're vacated. So it's all through attrition. So normally there's 3 meteorologists in training per office. Our office is going to be lucky enough to end up with 4 coming up, which is new. I know New Orleans is also going to have 4. So some of the bigger city offices may be getting 1 more than used to happen. By law, we have to select military veterans first. So when the bid closes, we get the military names first, and it's usually not very many. On this last round, we got 3. We had 3 openings. We got 3 military names. By law, I had to offer each of them a job. They each turned us down. So we ended up hiring all graduates. So this next round, we have another job coming out soon. Will we have military names? I don't know. But typically, it's only a very small number with a lot of offices competing. But we all have to offer them positions by, it's a law that was passed about 5 or 6 years ago. So I don't know what you guys are laughing about.
So we have one veteran is a Marine, and then I'm getting ready to take my first deployment. So 2 of us in here will be qualified for that status. But
excellent.
We hear rumors about, because we usually hear the student side that they get beat out by the military guys.
Yeah,
so
I was telling about.
we hope that we can bring something more to the table than just that package. But
Yeah.
Okay.
Just a chuckle.
Yeah, I mean, the ones that we interviewed, I interviewed all of them, and they were excellent. So SGX folks hires are lucky that they didn't pick us.
Yes.
Pay now always starts at 5 or 7. They used to allow 9. They do not allow that anymore. But the good news is once you're in, you increase at 2 levels per year until you get to 11. You can find the pay scale for any office in the country on opm.gov. Most essential: weather service experience, graduate level degree, emergency management work, tech skills, or a private sector weather experience. Those are the big 5, I would say, right now. So I'll go through this quick, I promise. So the job is open for 2 weeks, always posted on USA Jobs. Then our workforce management office evaluates the applications. They will divide all the applications into gold, silver, or bronze. We only see the gold. So they decided, they score all the applications. We only see the gold, and I've never seen beyond the gold level before. And typically that can be 100 to 150 folks on average. This last round, it was 157. Then the MIC will convene a deciding panel and come up with a top cut of applicants between 10 and 30. Then we conduct interviews, make final selections, and send them to workforce management. The selection gets approved through OPM. Then they make a tentative job offer. Then the selectee gets a background check, then the final offer. So the job was posted Thanksgiving week. That's when the jobs, or the week after Thanksgiving, is when the job came out for San Diego. And the final, we're still waiting on the last final offer to come out. So that gives you some idea of the whole time frame is several months here. Cover letter. So this is the actual cover letter that I used for my current job. So you can upload on USA Jobs, but we will only see one copy for all your cities, and we don't know which one. And so on this last round, there was only like 3 cover letters that actually said San Diego. Some of them had some, you know, New Orleans, some of them had Omaha, so on and so forth. And we don't know which one we're going to get, and we just do the best we can. So if you want to really tailor one for that office, make sure you send it directly to the MIC. It's just a mess up with USA Jobs that it does that. Focus on your leadership skills, and then in the last part of it, include what you would do if you get the job. If you selected me for this job, this is what I would do for you. And make sure it's not just you rehashing your resume, but you're also talking about what you're going to bring to the table if you get that job specifically. References or letters of recommendation, and 2 letters max. That's because it becomes paperwork overload. Sometimes we like emergency management letters. Professor one is good too. Sometimes that's better than one from an internal weather service. For references, aim as high as you can. Personal references don't do much. And also, if you're using a WFO reference, stick with a manager. Don't use a forecaster. You can always find a forecaster that likes you, but find somebody that has to objectively evaluate your performance, like a manager. It's a lot more effective that way. Sometimes you can have a special circumstance letter, and that there's one on the screen that was a letter I got from the Navy during Navy Week in New Orleans, and I always uploaded that one. It's pretty cool. Where the Rear Admiral actually sent me a letter thanking me for my work. And then it's great to have, you can upload it on USA Jobs, but you could actually have the person writing the letter send it directly to the MIC. Sometimes that's more effective. So the latest round of hiring that we did here in San Diego, so we got the panel of names around beginning of February, and we only had like a week. So we had a week to read over 157 applications because we were being pushed. Get it done, get it done. You know, we got to get our name, you know, from region. We got to get your names out there. So you can imagine a week to read over 157 applications, how much time we actually spend on each one. Not very long. So we scored all the applications, and we used those 5 criteria. Now this is going to vary from office to office, so this is just an example. But our 5 criteria were research and conferencing, technical skills, decision support experience, or emergency manager, NWS experience, and then leadership. So those are what we used. Some offices, we were looking heavily at decision support and EM work. Some offices were looking at more like tech, and it's going to vary. And sometimes it changes from bid to bid. It's a good thing to keep in mind. But on average, we spend only a few minutes on each application, because you can do the math. Even at that much, how long that takes, you know, and we have full-time jobs. So bottom line is you have to grab our attention, and you have to be able to grab our attention in like 2 or 3 minutes. You have to make this stuff really stand out on your resume. So we sat down and we had each person, we had a panel of 5. Everybody threw out their top 30 names and ranked them. All right, what's your top 30, Alex? That's my WCM. He had his top 30. Ivory, my Sue, he had his top 30. And then we said, where do we overlap? And we had 12 names where we almost all overlapped. I don't think we had any names where all 5 of us, it was at the top. Okay, we'll start there. And we ranked from the top 30. We came up with a ranking combined. And that's how we came up with our interview group. And we interviewed 20 simply because we were hiring 3 people, but a lot of times it'll be less than that. So most offices are 100 and 150 names. We had 157. I heard as high as 175. We interviewed 20. Next time when we're hiring 1, we'll probably only interview 8 or 10. It'll be less. Sometimes you'll have 2 rounds of interviews. We only did 1, and they're always done remotely. And for this round, we actually used Google Hangouts, and everybody liked it. So we're probably going to keep using Google Hangouts in the future. But sometimes it's just over the phone where they don't see you. You may have a written interview. You may have to put together a briefing. There's all kinds of possibilities. You may have a special project. You know, there's all kinds of possibilities how they're going to assess your ability. So some tips about getting ready for the interview: research the area. Expect some questions on your leadership experience and conflict management. Always have questions at the end, but don't ask us what your schedule is going to be. You know, you'll figure that out. Don't ask us in the interview. And practice. It's always a good idea to practice the interview. And I always like to say this: this is your life. You know, this is your life. This interview could make or break your whole future, and you've got to spend some time preparing for it. So my San Diego, when I interviewed for this job, I spent 10 hours studying and practicing. I spent basically the whole day before, because I was like, this is, you know, this could be the rest of my career in San Diego. I got to make this happen. Once you're in, everybody starts with a clean slate, and I don't know why there's that weird scribbly thing. So you did all this cool stuff in college, and this intern did this, and this one did this, and you come to your first day in the Weather Service, you're basically starting all over again. And what you're going to find is nobody at the office is going to be all that excited about what you did in college. You're like, well, you're here now. Show us what you can do here at the weather office. So everybody, and I have that even with my job. So I did all this awesome stuff in Key West and New Orleans. Well, that's great. You're in San Diego now. You're in a new position. Every time you move up, you start all over again. And some ways that you build yourself from that point is maintaining intellectual curiosity, professional development, which for meteorologists in training, that's mandatory, but it becomes more optional later on, and always staying current. There's a lot of shift work. It gets harder as you get older. So shift work is actually easiest at the beginning, and it gets harder and harder. And by the time I left being a lead at Houston, I was about 14 years in. Like during midnights, I had a hard time sleeping by that point. So, you know, you just need to be prepared. That's par for the course in the Weather Service. And I don't see this changing. I don't see this changing anytime soon. There's no I in team, kind of cliche, but we're always looking for the folks that can play together on a team, where you work together and everybody achieves more. That's really big in a WFO, where you're going to be working with somebody at 3 o'clock in the morning, and it's just you and that person for hours together. You got to be able to get along with others, and it stands out. The folks that can't, it becomes apparent very, very quickly. So the pie concept, this becomes more important as you move up the ladder, but there's a really good book called Empowering Yourself by Harvey Coleman. It's actually a little dated. It came out in the 90s, but the concept is still there. Performance really only accounts for 10% of your success, your ability to succeed. And image and exposure make up a big way. Image is your character, what people think of you. What is your image? Is it positive? Do you dress well? Do you come across well to others? Do you get along well with others? That's your image. Exposure is, okay, you've done all this great work. Who knows about it? Who has it benefited? Has the work just been focused in your local office, or is it helping a larger part of the agency and networking? And by the time you get up to like the management level, especially MIC, it's all about the green and the red, pretty much everything. So I like to say that it's all politics, but it's pretty much what is your image and what do folks know about what you've accomplished. So networking is really huge, and the earlier you can start it, the better off you are. What got you here won't get you there. Same basic concept. So you got to this job, great work. Now you're starting from scratch again. And some good quotes here. Fate is the hand of cards we've been dealt. Choice is how we decide to play the hand. And people who believe they can succeed see opportunities where others see threats. Not being afraid of change, not being afraid to adapt. And I can tell you, especially now in the Weather Service, we're really looking for those agents of change. Generation gap in the office. This is every day I see this play out, every day. So in college and high school, you're with around everybody that's your age, and you all grew up together in the same time, and in a lot of ways you think and operate the same way. And as you leave college, you're going to be thrust into this environment where all of a sudden you're interacting with every generation. And you've got to be able to adapt there. And finally, I think this is my last one, bloom where you're planted. I never thought I would live in New Orleans. I never thought I would live in Key West, and I definitely never thought I would live in San Diego and do all of that in like 6 years. So it's been a quick adaptation. But find out, whatever city you end up in, make it work for you. Make your life work for you there. And that's how you can, build yourself a future at that point. You may learn to love it. So that's it. And I forgot to change the address on that slide.
Thank you, Matt. Let me see if I can pull up everybody here so I can ping everybody for some questions.
So I think I can stop sharing my screen. Let me see if I can do that.
Matt, so just a technical question. So during this, we recorded the presentation. Is it all right if I share this with some students who might not be here now if I hold on to this recording?
Oh, totally. Yeah.
Okay, great. Okay, so I see we still have about half a dozen in the chat and some people here. So does anybody in here have a question? Go ahead, Chris.
You were talking about the bidding process for getting higher once you're already in. Can you just go into a little bit more depth about that?
Okay, I heard bidding process, but what was the last part?
I was just wondering if you could go into a bit more depth about what all is involved in that bidding process.
And as far as like evaluating the resumes, or?
No, for like once you're already in.
Like to a general forecaster type thing?
Yeah, like you said, you had to bid to get into the management positions and stuff. Yeah, go over.
Yeah. So normally it's pretty similar, really. So like let's say you've been a meteorologist in training and you're ready to go for a forecaster position. The job gets posted on USA Jobs. It'll be there 2 weeks. You bid on it. The panels are much smaller. So once you're inside, so the average forecaster job, we might have 20 to 30 names on the list, or maybe a little more. It won't be at 157. you know. And then typically the job closes, the panel comes out with the names, and the MIC of the office will do interviews. The interviews tend to get harder as you go up, obviously. So like a lead forecaster job now, it's pretty hard to bid on one without having to do a briefing or do a media interview, something pretty like, you know, putting you on the spot kind of thing.
Thank you.
Good question. Matt, so I have a question. Let's see, I'm pointing to the ground here. So one of the things you mentioned was shift work. And for those of us who maybe are a little bit older or are starting families, how do you find, or like, how do you cope with that? How do you have someone, bring someone along with you? Where's the end of the tunnel maybe in terms of getting off shift work, or what's the best coping mechanism that you found in that process?
So for the meteorologist in training and the forecaster jobs, shift work is required as long as you do that job. So like a lead forecaster, so I have like lead forecasters near retirement that have done shift work their whole career, pretty much. As you move into the management level, it becomes less frequent. We still do it sometimes, but it's a lot less frequent. So sometimes folks move away from the MET positions that they get in if it becomes, you know, tough to handle with a family. But I've known lots of folks with kids that have managed it. And we do here at San Diego, we do a preference schedule. So it tends to be a little more stable. There's a little less rotation here, but the schedule varies from office to office. So everybody does it differently. Some folks do 7 midnights in a row. That's what we did in Houston. It was tough, you know, especially at the end. Sometimes you might do 3 or 4, but you might have to do them more often, that kind of thing. So it's tough, but you can make it work.
Got it. I have another question if nobody does. So one of the things that you brought up is a volunteer position, a pathways position are great ways to get into the National Weather Service. And while the volunteer position is a bit easier to get, they're still very competitive. So what do you recommend to the student who, you know, wants to be in the National Weather Service, wants to maybe get in next year to one of these positions? Maybe, you know, you gave us a lot of examples of what we can be doing, but maybe give us an example of someone that wowed you with experience that wasn't quite a pathways position or a volunteer position.
I can try to think of, so one of our hires had done a big emergency management project where they had actually like convened social science panels with emergency managers and evaluated weather service products and services. That really impressed me because that's something that even in the weather service, not very many people are doing, but we need to do more of. So there's one example. An internship with emergency management is another, which I think we had 2 candidates with that, one that's sitting in the room there. You know, that and also private sector work. So several of the folks we interviewed had been in the private sector several years post-graduation. And having a little bit of that real world experience helps too. But it is competitive to do the volunteer and the pathways. Sometimes like the office picks 1 out of like 7, you know. You just have to keep trying.
Great. Anybody else have any more questions? I know there's some people online. I haven't seen anything or gotten any text from anyone. So with that, I think everybody has your contact information. I know some people are going to fester on some questions. We have a little presentation that we're following up with between Adam here is going to talk about his interview process. I volunteered with and Chanhassen and Brian here is volunteering at LWX this summer. So we're going to talk a little bit about our immediate interview processes. And but I'd like to say thanks, and if everybody can give Matt a round of applause. Any final words, Matt?
No, I definitely want to see you all's presentation, so I'll stay on.
Oh, okay. Fantastic. So then what we'll do here is we can just share our screen. And let's see here. So don't talk too poorly about your interview process, Adam. But otherwise, I think we'll just we could pop up here if you want to come on up and chat. Maybe we could both chat up here. Let's see if we can get this.
Can you make that into the small screen?
Yeah. Give me 1 second here. We'll leave Matt up at the corner. Otherwise, I don't have access to how we look anymore, but I think we're centered. So go ahead, Adam, if you want to start it off.
All right, cool. So as we said, we're kind of the lineage here. This was my boss. I'm just going to be in the National Weather Service in June. And Bob volunteered in Minneapolis last summer, and then Brian's going to volunteer down in DC this summer. So we're going to kind of talk about how to become a student volunteer in the Weather Service, what we've kind of gone through with our volunteer experiences, and then I'll kind of touch upon getting into the Weather Service as a student. So talk about that.
So yeah, like Adam said, I'm going to be volunteering this summer in Sterling, Virginia. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about the application process, what I had to go through, and then what they've told me so far about what I'm going to be doing. I don't really know that much yet. I just got an email today about a little bit more like logistical information, but as far as like the deep details go, Bob will probably be the better one to talk about that. So the application, it varies by office. So Sterling, I'll just be talking about Sterling specifically, but it could be different based off of State College or Mount Holly or something like that locally. But for Sterling, they put out a Google form. They had a page on their website that's pretty hard to find, I guess. Basically, if you look above the forecast or above the main page of the forecast office, there's a couple quick links. And I think they always post the student volunteer thing there. So I found it that way initially. And then they have a little like blit about what they do with the student volunteer, and then apply. It's a very easy application. It was a Google form. They asked like basic information like name, where you go to school, where you're going to be staying over the summer, because obviously that's important because they don't provide housing or anything since it's a volunteer position. So they want to know like how close you're going to be to their office. Advisor information, transcript, resume, and then like a one-page personal statement. They asked me like background information, interests, and how this volunteer will help me in the future. And then I submitted that. That was due in late June. Normally these applications come out in, I guess for Sterling, it was probably late November, early December, something like that. I first saw the link, submitted it, and then didn't hear back for about a month. I think late February, Jason Elliott is the lead of the student volunteer program in Sterling. He emailed me requesting a phone interview. So we set that up, and I called in for the phone interviews. It wasn't Google Hangouts or anything, it was just over the phone. So all they could do was hear me, and I could hear them. And it was about half an hour long. And it was with Jason, and then I think the warning coordination meteorologist, I believe it was him and another staff member who were on the call with me. And it was pretty routine. Like they asked me some background questions, like some classes I've been taking, extracurriculars, and then they asked me some questions about my resume. So like I put on that I was a forecaster here at Millersville on my resume, and they asked me like, oh, what does that mean? Like, what did you do for that? Like, how often is that? And then specifically asked me a couple questions on IT and technical stuff. So they're like, what programming background do you have? Do you know how to use AWIPS? Do you know how to use GR2? Like, how familiar are you with them? And I'm like, well, it's good because I am taking radar meteorology. and you learn a lot of that stuff in that class. So that's definitely a good class to take for that. And then they asked me some like other just general questions, like what got me interested in the weather, like what were some of the big highlights with that, and then what I was hoping to get out of being a student volunteer, like over the phone, more than just like the little blip you put in the personal statement. And then how they asked me, like on a scale of 1 to 10, how likely you would be to take the position if you're offered. I thought that was a pretty interesting question, just because it's like you really want to see how interested someone's going to be before you like offer that. And then the next day, I got an email that was saying I'd been accepted, and I got the letter for that.
Next day?
Yeah, next day. Because
Wow.
the way they did it is they were doing, you do a research project over the summer, and that's what I was going to talk about next, and they had to submit the abstracts for that for the National Weather Association conference, and they're like, we need to do these phone interviews fast and then tell you really fast because we want to know who's going to be here. Yeah, because basically what happened is I got the email on a Wednesday requesting a phone interview, and he gave me a list of options that was like Thursday, the day after the day I got the email. And then like a couple days the week afterwards, and I chose the day after the email. I got the email, and he's like, oh, we can't actually do this because the other guy I want on the call isn't going to be available. So I had to do the following Thursday. So it was, I think, 8 days in between when I got the email requesting the interview and when I had the phone interview. And then that Friday I got accepted. Wow. So pretty much.
That's impressive.
Yeah, I was. They run a strict
timetable.
If
If I could piggyback off of that, I had a similar application process where we started about the same time frame, and we found the application, the same location on the page. Also, in central and in the western regions, they have weather stories, and sometimes the applications will be they'll be up top, or they also have a box that has a slide that'll show when the position is available, how long it's open for. So that was very similar, and a similar application process in terms of questions, in terms of what they required, resume, cover letter, and the questions they wanted answered. My interview process was a bit different, a little bit slower. So I also got an email setting up a call, and I saw that it had gone out to, or I've been told it had gone out to a few people, and I had time to prepare. And I know that a lot of us, after dealing with or meeting AccuWeather folks and hearing the kinds of interviews that came from those offices, Chris, you interviewed with AccuWeather, it was a very, it was a completely different process. I had studied pretty hard because I heard about, know your exact climatology. I knew the station location. I knew their forecast. I knew their seat. I knew MPX's weather to a T. And I didn't get asked a weather question.
Yeah, they didn't ask you.
There wasn't a lot of weather questions. I was prepared to answer a lot of leadership questions and the interest questions as well, but it definitely was a bit of a shock to me. Obviously that developed as I did my volunteer ship, that I realized why they stayed away from the weather forecasting so much, but I guess that wasn't blaringly obvious when I started. So those secondary things will take you far in an interview for these volunteer positions. Also for pathways positions, it's very similar for pathways.
Yeah, that's definitely a good point, because really when you get in an office, you're going to learn the weather of that area. Wherever you go, once you're there, that's your work. You're not in college so busy everywhere anymore. You're there, so you'll learn eventually. So they just want to ask, kind of wide range of questions.
Yeah, but anyway, so after that, I got that letter, and then they sent me PDFs of all the stuff they sent me in the mail. They sent me a couple of background check things. That's pretty much you just sign and fill out, and then send back. And the only annoying thing, but not really, because it was over spring break. So fortunately, I was home, because you have to get fingerprinted. So you have to go to the police station, and this again varies by where you do it. But I know for me, I live in Montgomery County, Maryland, and they charge for fingerprinting, but it was a nominal fee. So you just have to go in and get fingerprinted by the police, and then send that and all those other forms back in to them, so that they can do your background checks. And I think those cleared for me within about a month. I think early April, mid-April, a couple of weeks ago, they emailed me that said it all cleared, and they gave me the title of my research presentation. And then just this morning, I got the email about logistical things about setting up schedule and when you'll be working. I'm sure Bob can touch more on this, but basically the brief thing that they told me is you're going to be doing a research project over the summer. So basically, with that, and they told me the title of mine. I can see here. Mine is called radar climatology and analysis of near storm environment of tornadic vortices in the Baltimore-Washington region of the Mid-Atlantic United States. So pretty much they did a poster, which is why they rushed my interview process so much.
So they give you a long time.
Yeah, it's because that's a NWA thing, and I think that it's optional that you present that at NWA, but that would still be obviously something you want to do. But you
that's
do
really good that they give you that opportunity.
That is really,
and you do have to present it to the WFO office, at least for Sterling.
Yeah.
But anyway, the scheduling was very flexible for me. He basically asked me what dates can't you at all do over the summer, so they can work it out with if you want to have another job, which is I'm working at my high school a little bit in July. So that's 2 days a week. And then Sterling, they set up, it's 16 to 24 hours a week, so that's 2 to 3 days. So they set up with me is 8 hours Monday and Wednesday with the possibility of obviously doing more. And then doing more would be doing community outreach. So I actually already got invited to go to a Skywarn meeting.
Severe weather day.
Yeah.
That happens. Like,
Storm surveys and other community outreach stuff. So obviously those would be really cool to go in, is just shadow the NWS in a storm survey.
it was cool. Yeah, it was.
It was.
Obviously,
Yeah.
I probably touch points, but
yeah,
so
randomly it'll pop up and they'll be like, "You want to go?"
yeah,
They're not paying you, so it's kind of your schedule.
yeah, exactly. They are very flexible of what you want to do, and then you still get to like be at home and then do all this really cool stuff with them. So I'm really looking forward to it this summer.
So I'd love to add just a little bit to that. I think you have a very good sense of where your volunteer program is going, and that's really exciting that you had a set research project to start. One of the points that I had later on in the slideshow, and I realized why you had that slide there now, but one of the points that I had was that your mileage is going to vary from office to office. So actually, I had reached out to Adam, and I had reached out to Andrew. He did the volunteer position at the Mount Holly office the few years before. And when I got to Chanhassen, I realized that there wasn't as set of a schedule as that I had heard before. I didn't go in and pick my schedule right off the bat, and I didn't have a research project right off the bat, which initially was a little worrisome or kind of scary because I knew that there were opportunities there. There were lots of opportunities to learn, but I needed to focus myself in what I wanted to get out of this experience. And that's something that, just by having that idea that, okay, there's something going on here and I need to get on board. When I thought about that, looked around me and finally got to like an initial meeting, maybe like a few days in and sat down and kind of really dished out what I wanted to accomplish with my bosses. It was a very effective dialogue because I had thought about it and knew like, this is what I want to work on. Someone that I do aviation forecasting for the Guard, I knew that I wanted to work on TAFs, and I realized that some of the forecasters don't like to work on TAFs.
Nobody wants to do that.
Nobody wanted to work on TAFs, and they were developing or they were starting to use an auto TAF writer that would bring in from the gridded data something that they're already working on and make a TAF, and that's something that I'd love to do anyway. So I try to eat that up. Also, the decision support services at that office were top notch, and I could tell they were extremely active in that regard. They had a meteorologist who also, one of them was a Rangers fan, so that was a real easy connection to talk to. That goes back to office dynamics, like Matt was talking about, just being able to chat with people and get to know people. That we hit it off, and he was in charge of decision support, so it was easy for me to hop on to those projects that were, again, really exciting to me, someone with military experience, seeing how the Guard operates with the National Weather Service. So, a lot of times I've seen in the past that offices have very strict kind of schedules. Adam mentioned that it's on your time, so you can make it as much as you want, but also go in with a goal. You don't have to. You will be told what to do, which is great, but also like have goals for yourself that you want to set out and accomplish, because that's something that'll make your volunteership very worthwhile. I think that was my point.
Yeah, it's kind of I volunteered in Charleston, West Virginia, so they kind of gave us options. It was me and another student, so they kind of gave us options, and you kind of want to fit in where they need help. That's really the main important goal here. Is it's kind of science related, or do you want to do like outreach related? So I did more storm ready and outreach related, but it's good that they had a plan in Charleston.
I did want to touch on one thing, however, and it will likely be in a plan, and it's probably part of every office's plan, but you want to learn the intern position. You want to learn what that desk does, because, I mean, why wouldn't you give yourself the skill set that
The job you may apply.
the job that you're applying for, give yourself that skill set, right? And it's something we were talking about, how, we can learn how to do the balloon launches and get the training manual. You can read through the training manual. You can see mock questions, get as close as you can to being certified, so that when you go to talk with an interviewer, you don't just get to say, oh yeah, I launched the weather balloon. It's like, no, I'm pretty much ready to be qualified in this task, right? So that way I can get checked off on this task pretty quickly when I show up. We're not going to waste a lot of time. I'm not going to drag my feet learning how to do this task and do this task. I know how to do this. I'll brush up on it when I get there, and we'll get it done so we can move forward.
The offices that say they want to treat you like an intern, you're in a good spot.
Yeah.
And I did 2 volunteer things, and they both said that. So, good spot, definitely.
Cool.
All right. Cool.
No, that's pretty much everything.
All right.
Fantastic.
Move along.
Oh yeah, I just put that on there. That was
Okay.
from the email they sent me
Oh,
today,
nice.
actually, where it's like on the bottom of the PDF of logistical stuff. They just mentioned like, you get a good foot in the door with NWS. I'm sure you guys will talk about that. And that's where some of their student volunteers have gone on to since volunteering at Sterling.
Very good.
That was just at Sterling.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that was just
that
at
was
Sterling.
Sterling since 2005.
Yep.
So, wide array of things you can do with that experience. Yeah, as we said, kind of it's increasingly harder to get a job in the NWS. A lot of things they're really looking at is NWS experience, whether volunteer pathways, Helming scholarship. Depends. There's a pretty picture of Bismarck. So yeah, I kind of wanted to talk about education. I think it's really important that you have your meteorology degree, but it's also important to expand your horizons. And I also wanted just to say, like, go Millersville, like, really good programs here you guys have, like a bachelor's in emergency management, this master's in emergency management. Like, we didn't even have that at Ohio. IS courses, I didn't even know what they were until I came here. So really take advantage of those things if you're trying to get into the weather service. Different GIS classes you guys have here. The MSISA program is definitely good with Dr. Clark. If you guys can definitely get into those, and you know the connections here, definitely pursue those if you can. It definitely will set you apart. As Matt said, when they're shifting through all those applications and all the masters in meteorology are going, it's good to have something like emergency management or MSISA under your belt.
If I can add to that just real quick. For example, Mark put together the Thyra project. We're talking about this today. It's something that he's been working on for over a semester now, getting people involved. That's the kind of thing that you want to sign up for as an undergraduate, because when these opportunities present themselves, you'll already have the foundation. You'll know the lingo. You'll know the courses. You get to take the minor, and you can really step forward into a project like that. And not for naught, that is a very large bullet on your resume. Just for, like Matt had mentioned, those are the opportunities that maybe you don't get your foot in the door right away, but set yourself up in your time that you have to yourself over a summer, or even in conjunction with the volunteer program, because you have time. It's not it's not your entire summer. Set yourself up to do research or a project like that while you're waiting to move forward.
Yeah, you definitely have, the educational opportunities here at Millersville, as well as the people and connections. So definitely utilize that. It's very good here. I'm very impressed with it. So kind of, Matt kind of talked about, experience. So as kind of a person just getting into the weather service, volunteering is a really good experience. It, really helps with your resume. Professors and mentors, as I've mentioned, here at Millersville, you guys have really good professors. You have 4 meteorology professors. Very good. We only had 2. So definitely take advantage of those, visit them at their office hours. So something that is cool, like Brian, he interviewed. At Charleston, I interviewed. At Bismarck, North Dakota, I did not, because not a lot of people live there. So if you know anyone, a relative or anything near a rural NWS office that students aren't flocking to, give them a call. They would probably love to take a student because they probably haven't had one in a while. And that could be your foot in the door by doing that. So if you know anyone, kind of a smaller office region, your aunt lives a half hour from an office, why not? It would be a fun summer. Emergency management offices, really good thing here with the Lancaster County Emergency Management Agency, the university, and Dr. Yalda have a really good relationship with them. And so getting an internship like that, I did it last semester. It was very good. So yeah, as I say here, very impressed with your chapter here. I've only been here since August, and a lot of great resources for internships and connections here. And Bob has done a great job.
You have to let me plug. You have to let me plug. So I'm so glad you put that on there. One of the things that we're so proud of is that internship board that we put on our website.
Yes.
So there's, I mentioned this over and over again. So
Adam
everybody
Weiner, right?
everybody that's listening,
Shout out. That is great.
yeah, we put together a
Very
internship Excel file, and we tried to gather all of the forwarded internships and National Weather Service positions and everything, put it in one spreadsheet. And that's something like, you had mentioned that not those opportunities to do a volunteer position aren't always so blatantly available. Yes, we get the emails from Penn State and we'll get the emails from Mount Holly, but sometimes they don't go much farther than that. So yeah, if you see those opportunities, share them with your friends. You're not always going to compete for every position, so share them. And you make us more known throughout the realm, and then we get more invitations coming back our way, and that you're just helping fellow students through the future. So everybody that's here that might be involved with AMS in the future, keep that updated, please.
Yes, and apply to everything.
Yeah.
Just cast a wide net, as Matt said. Yeah, networking, big thing. Who's been to an AMS conference in here?
This guy.
Yes. Yes.
Well, you went to Northeast Storms, right?
Oh, yeah.
You went to Northeast Storms. Yeah.
Okay, good.
Oh, yeah.
Starting out early. Good. That's kind of where it all happens. That's where you can, meet as many people as you want. As I say, leave your college crew behind. You're here with them like the whole year. You're only at AMS for a couple of days, sometimes a week maybe. Definitely get out there, put yourself out there. I've done it. I used to be shy, when I was younger, and then I just started talking with people. And people have interesting stories, and they can really get you to places where you go. Your professors here at Millersville, again, you have 4, 5 professors, amazing. That's awesome. Find something you like, do some research with them, get to know them, and definitely asking about opportunities from your professors as well. Important. Networkers you find at AMS that you've been in contact with. NWS Bismarck. I did an internship with the Atmospheric Resource Board up there at Bismarck, North Dakota. And I was like, oh, there happens to be an office right there. So let's contact them and see if they, I can do something at the office. And the Sue there is awesome and just set everything up for me, gave me a plan, everything. And so I got that by just asking for it. So it never hurts to ask.
That extends to our program. Adam, you mentioned it, like all you have to do is ask. And for here, we have professors that want to do work. I iterate this often, and I want to get it recorded, that there are so many opportunities here for your own independent research and studies under the guidance of whichever professor you feel that you would connect with or work best with. And that it's the same application, it's the same process. And then doing that work can obviously put you ahead when you're applying for positions like these, because not only does it show that you did this awesome research that you eventually went and presented, and that Millersville probably paid you to go to a conference to present, but also it shows that you have the initiative to just decide that I want to learn more about this thing. I'm going to go ahead and do it. Let's work through all the channels, get in touch with the right people, make it happen. And that, I think people look fondly on that, and I would hope that would agree. So.
Yeah. And keep in touch with people. Don't just meet them and then, oh, I'm back in my hometown and that's it. Keep in touch. Very important. Okay, so here's the interview. Hey, Matt. Big round of interviews came out at the end of the year, and I think there's probably going to be more coming out after the semester's over. So I was referred to, I think all of them, most of them, except the ones with the veterans that already got chosen. So I was referred to around 35 or 40 of them, and I got 16 interviews. So I interviewed 16 different places, which is kind of a lot, but it was pretty cool. 14 of them were by phone. 2 of them were by Google Hangouts, one with Matt at San Diego, and then the other one in West Texas. And so, you know, that kind of does say something. If it's, you know, face to face and they see you, you know, you can really bring, you know, your personality to the table, and, you know, who you are as a person if they can actually see you, who you are. I really enjoyed interviewing with San Diego and then Midland, Odessa, and Texas with the Google Hangouts. I actually really like that. So let's see. Yeah, as Matt kind of mentioned, research the place being interviewed, the local weather, the geographical area. It was fun to impress people, like by knowing little towns and be like, oh, the weather there, you know, it's really cool. And they'd be like that. So definitely study your geography. That's really cool. And yeah, so each interview was around 10 to 15 questions. You know, as we said before, not many weather questions. A couple offices did ask me like specific weather questions, like up in Marquette, Michigan. They're like, what's the average of snow in Marquette? Like, 300, but or 200 something. But I was like, okay. So, you know, there might be some of those little questions in there, but it's mainly going to be, as I have listed here, you know, leadership. A lot of office asked me, you know, what do you feel is your greatest accomplishment? So kind of like Bob was talking about, you could do something here in your college years that, you know, you feel really confident about and accomplished. What are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? Try and make your weaknesses as positive as possible. You know, it can be hard to do, but you know, definitely those are something they will ask. Different scenario questions. So I got a lot of, you know, if a lead forecaster tells you to do the wrong thing, what do you do? If a person from the public calls with, you know, saying this, how would you respond? Different things like that. So it really puts it into perspective on, you know, what kind of things may happen in the office environment. You gotta know how to respond to those. And then kind of, you know, you have to remember that you're applying to a company, an agency. It's not just, oh, I'm going to be a meteorologist and it's just a job. It's like, no, you're applying to a federal agency. So knowing, you know, what the National Weather Service is, what a weather ready nation is, knowing the definition, but also what does it mean to you? That's something that a lot of people ask me, and, you know, integrating your experiences and people you've met is definitely important. And then the big thing, you know, as Matt said, they shifted through 157, you know, resumes. They see you on paper. Now you have to prove yourself in person. So, you know, what makes you unique? What can you bring to the table? What can you do for that office is definitely something that's very important. Definitely tailor your questions to the office you're going to. Also the interview, I know Matt kind of mentioned, you have to have, you know, it's good to have questions. Don't just be, you know, sitting there like, okay, I'm done. Not very good. I, you know, kind of made these up definitely before, you know, the interview. I kind of had some of these. So current office projects. So things, you know, that Brian and Bob kind of are going to do at volunteer. Maybe they'll have those as projects that they're currently working on. Expectations, you know, how does an intern, how will I fit into the workspace? What will I be doing? Different things like that. What are your expectations of an intern? Different deployment opportunities. So I'm really outreach oriented, IDSS oriented, kind of what San Diego was looking for. And, you know, I kind of wanted to know kind of, you know, some questions that you have maybe about outreach or, you know, IT technical questions. What does the office do with this? And then maybe different qualities you look in for your forecasters, you know, integrity, and, you know, all of that, you know, can really kind of set the stage as to what the office is like and what the people are like at that office. So here's a little timetable. So toward the end of the year, I remember it was Christmas break, and I thankfully it was Christmas break. So I was able to apply to all these positions. There were all of these that I had to apply for. It was a lot, but at least I was on break. And so the application was due in late December. I had my interviews from kind of early February to mainly in mid-February. A lot of sitting down at the CDRE, doing my interviews in the morning. And then it took about a month to get that tentative job offer. So I had 16 interviews. I was accepted at 4 places. So my next bullet point is very important. I had 4 different options, and meteorology and life. I think those are the big things, because I said no to Norman, Oklahoma. Everyone's like, but I had to life as well. It would be cool to live there. It'd be awesome. But, living on my 3rd college campus of my life, living in Oklahoma. But Matt went to OU, so I'm not going to diss it. But, you really have to, weigh what you want to do at your job, but also what you want to do in life. And so I thought, let's just go to San Diego. Pittsburgh could be a safe bet, but let's go to San Diego and do something.
I think it's Dr. Cora who always says repeatedly that your first job is not going to be your last. I mean, and that's echoed throughout both the National Weather Service and throughout AMS and meteorology and the whole. So, when you have those opportunities, you have to be confident in your decision and want to make a decision, but also you can't be scared to just take a risk and find something new, because and Matt's case is a great example. I mean, he's been to 3 very different offices, and that's a really exciting opportunity for us, or someone that's getting into the National Weather Service, especially because once you're in and you are developing yourself as a standout employee, then you're going to have the opportunities to move up and sideways to other offices, which I think is really cool.
Yeah, like I won't be there forever, but it's definitely a new adventure that I'm excited about, going west and all of that. So early April, a few weeks ago, I bugged the people a million times, and I got my final job offer letter, which is really exciting. And then in June, I'll begin my work. So that's almost 6 months. Matt was talking about the timeline as well. It takes a long time. You have to be patient, but it's definitely worth it. So I kind of just wanted to give you guys the timeline. A lot of people ask me timing and stuff, so that's kind of what the timeline is there for that.
Oh, so I moved this slide just a little bit late, but I hit these messages that your mileage may vary for the volunteer positions, and know what you want to get out of your internship. And there are a lot of tools that we practice here, whether it be GR2 or AWIPS, but there's a lot of tools that are used in the National Weather Service. So get your hands on as many as you can. I know we're reaching back to the volunteer position here,
but yeah, the interview, the online questions that USA Jobs, like they're gonna ask, have you used AWIPS, blah 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 blah.
Right.
If you used it, you can answer.
That's a great piece of advice. So after I had worked with, or before I had gone to do the volunteer position, I had looked at some of the postings for National Weather Service positions for the intern position. So I can literally see what questions I'm going to be asked in the interview or in the application process, and I know that I have to get those skills, because those are the ones that I want to be able to say, yes, I've done this without, I've done this independently as much as possible for a volunteer position. Obviously, you have to be signed off, but
on the USA Jobs, if you look at the posting, it says how you will be evaluated, and you can review the questions that they'll ask you, and that's how you're scored. So you want to score high on those questions. I've done this independently, or I've done this with a little bit of super. But yeah, definitely look at what those questions are asking.
Cool. And I think that wraps up our part of the brief. So
yeah, you guys have any questions or? Yeah.
Thank you. Can we imagine everyone in the audience is applauding as well?
Yes, do applaud it.
Great. So let me get everybody back here. Okay. Let's see here.
Everybody's actually sitting at home eating Cheetos.
Clapping with their mouths. Yeah.
Here, stop share. There we go. I think we're back. Matt,
That was
we
excellent,
haven't
guys.
got any questions in the chat. I don't know if they're.
That's great.
I didn't see any text, so. Are there any lingering questions from the audience? Excuse me. Turn this back to our phones.
Yeah.
Great.
One from Brian. So why did you choose Sterling, Virginia? Because I live right on that.
Because it's the closest to my house. I live in Montgomery County, so it's like right across the river for me. So
you want to be close to me?
Yeah. Because that's like, I mean, I could have done, the only other family I have that I could have done another office would have been Wakefield, Virginia, because my grandmother lives in Ocean City, Maryland, but that would have been like kind of a weird drive just because you had to get across the bay again.
Right.
What's New York City's Binghamton? Or no, that's not Binghamton. It's that lab on Long Island.
Oh, Long
Yeah.
Island, yeah.
Okay, then.
Yeah, Brookhaven, that's right. I knew it started with B. I could have done that one, but I wanted to stay home over the summer, so I just applied to Sterling just because that was closest to my house.
If you can get someone you know anywhere, do that. In West Virginia, I had to drive an hour and 40 minutes one way.
Yeah.
But you do what you got to do. But yeah, if you know someone near an office, chill.
My girlfriend moved out to Minnesota this year. She was about an hour away from the Chanhassen office. So,
You did an hour.
yeah, I did. It was an easy drive, but I mean, to me, it wasn't really a problem. I wanted the position,
Yeah.
and I wanted to be out in Minneapolis.
Through the
so.
country roads of West Virginia.
Yeah,
Easy.
yeah, exactly. So,
Yeah.
but it's definitely a consideration. I mean, it is unpaid to do a volunteer position.
Yeah.
So it's a consideration. You have to be able to support yourself. There are opportunities through the school to do stuff remotely. So don't limit yourself until you exhaust all of your options for making it on for the volunteer position.
Yeah, part-time job and then part-time weather service.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they're flexible about the times too, because I know over the phone they ask, because like obviously you put your address on the Google form. He's like, oh, you live in Maryland. He's like, I'm sure you know, getting across the American Legion Bridge every day. He's like, oh, you sure you're gonna be able to do that? I'm like, yeah, I'll leave early enough, which is what I did. I looked on Google Maps and actually found like the best times to get there and leave, so I would avoid most of that bottleneck traffic.
Right.
And I actually looked up the other guy there's actually two people going to Sterling soon. The other guy's from Maryland, just because I think they put his email address in one of the emails they sent to me, so I found him, and he actually lives further away than I do from Sterling in Maryland. So I'm like, oh man, he's doing it, so I better be able to do it too. Yeah.
Any other questions? Great. Do you have anything else for us, Matt?
No, that was it. Great presentation, guys. So it's good.
Thank you so much. And so let's give Matt another round of applause for helping us out today.
Thank you.
Again, mentioned this, but thank you. Yeah, this was a great presentation. We were really excited that we had a lot of people tune in online as well. So thank you for everybody that either called in or hopped online. Just quick administrative notes. Tomorrow during the afternoon at the Common Hour meeting is our officer nominations. So if you have someone that you want to nominate or if you want to be nominated, come by. A few of us we have research awards to go to, so not everyone will be there. So for that, we will accept nominations until 5 p.m. in the evening. And I'll send out reminders about that. Then Wednesdays are mandatory meeting with the election. So please plan on being there with your checks for the banquet, because the banquet is on Friday. So it is a very busy week for us, Matt, as we wind up the semester. But again, yeah, as we're winding up the semester, I hope, this has kind of completed our, private sector, public sector, and other aspects of meteorology that we've touched on all year. I hope that there's a lot for you to take away from here. I'm glad that you're happy with us recording this presentation, because we would love to forward it. I think this information has been applicable for a little while. There are upcoming changes, especially with DSS and other tools that as an undergraduate you can come to your application with, but a lot of it's very pertinent info. So that's exciting for us to be able to pass this along. With that, thanks again. And unless there's any other questions, or if anyone has any lingering thoughts, then that's a wrap for this meeting. So great. Thank you. Cool.
Thanks, everyone.
Yeah.
Thanks, Matt.
And Matt, we'll be in touch. We'll wrap up, send you an email shortly, just a little thank you and a wrap up. And I'm sure if there's anybody with questions, I think you had your email up on the last slide there. So we'll try to solicit them en masse and send them over to you. So.
Yeah, feel free, definitely.
All right, appreciate it. I'm gonna log out here, everybody. And that's end of the meeting.